Hi, this is Denise LaRosa, and you're listening to Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa, where moms get together to share our joys and challenges while also providing listeners with some invaluable resources and information on parenting. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, this show is about you, so please become an active participant by visiting www.denisenlarosa.com, liking my Facebook page, Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa, and follow me on Twitter at Denise N. LaRosa. Perhaps one of the most sensitive issues for parents is sleep. From infants having their days and nights switched, to toddlers refusing to stay in that toddler bed, to parents suffering from lack of sleep, and so much more. Oftentimes we find ourselves at a loss and out of remedies. If you were to come to my house at around 8:30 p.m., most times you would find my 2-year-old and 3-month-old in their own rooms, sleeping like angels. How do I do this, you might ask? Well, I have one answer for you, and that's the Sleep Lady. Kim West, aka the Sleep Lady, has helped tens of thousands of tired parents, just like us, all over the world, learn to listen to their intuition, recognize their child's important cues and behaviors, and gently create changes that promote and preserve his or her healthy sleep habits. Kim has appeared on Dr. Phil, The Today Show, NBC Nightly News, Good Morning America, TLC's Bringing Home Baby, and CNN, and has been written about in a number of publications, including The Wall Street Journal, Associated Press, Baby Talk, Parenting, the Baltimore Sun, USA Today, the Telegraph, the Irish Independent, and the Washington Post. She also hosts the sleep section of the Newborn Channel, played in maternity wards and hospitals across the country. Kim has been doing this a long time, and her gentle, proven sleep method works. Kim West has authored Good Night, Sleep Tight, the Sleep Lady's gentle guide to helping your child go to sleep, stay asleep, and wake up happy, with co-author Joanne Keenan. She is also the author of 52 Sleep Secrets for Babies and the Good Night Sleep Tight Workbook, Gentle Proven Solutions to help your child sleep well and wake up happy. Kim West received her master's degree in clinical social work from Simmons College in Boston, Massachusetts, and she currently lives with her family in Maryland. I am so humbled to say that Kim was the first nationally acclaimed expert to be willing to be a guest on Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa. And let me tell you why. It's because she genuinely cares about your child's sleep. She wants to help every family that she possibly can. Please take a listen to our conversation.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So great. It's great to talk with you.
Thank you. It's just an amazing opportunity to talk to you. I mean, you are a rock star in this household.
Aw, thank you.
You got it. And it's just a coincidence because one of my daughters had an appointment today with her pediatrician, and he is actually the one who recommended your book to us with our first daughter. Dr. Keller is amazing, and he just really believed that what you had to offer would work for our family, and we're going on 2 years, and we're sleeping good.
That's great. And so how old was your first daughter when you did that?
She was about, I want to say, 7 to 8 months at the time.
Okay.
And what I love about Good Night Sleep Tight is that I literally walk around the house, Kim, with it in my hand. Like at various points in their developmental stages, it's like such a great reference book. It's not one of those books that you pick up and you read one time and put it away. It is like ongoing. And so she is 2 years old now, and so she is going through the scaries and the toddler bed, and so I had to pick up your book, and we're making it through, and now our youngest is almost 4 months, and so we are reading that section. So it's just an amazing resource.
That's great. Good.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you got it. Thank you. And I just want to spread the word to as many moms, as many families as I possibly can, because your book is truly, truly, truly a godsend for us. And I just know that with a lot of things that we do as moms, we're inspired by our children. And your story is no different. You have 2 daughters, and they really, truly seem to have inspired you to become the Sleep Lady. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So my daughters were really good sleepers. I don't have one of those horrible stories. However, I did have to come to it on my own. So when I was pregnant with my first daughter, my older brother and his wife, who I've dedicated my book to, they had their baby 6 months. Actually, both of their boys are 6 months older than both of my girls. And their first son did not sleep through the night for a long time. And granted, he had ear infections, but they were at their wits' end. You know, they were like, we're never having any more children. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep my job. Very, very stressed out. And that scared me. And I felt like I really wanted to try to have things be different for me, like we all do in parenting, right? And
yes.
I followed some really actually bad advice that I was given regarding lactation, and it just wasn't working. I had to wake up my daughter every hour and a half and try to get her to nurse, and she just wouldn't. And I was up for hours and all kinds. It's a whole long story. I actually have it posted on my blog. And I just decided that I was going to go by my intuition, and if for some reason she wasn't thriving, I'd come up with another plan. And she did thrive, and I continued to wear her. I continued to breastfeed, but I had more of a schedule, which wasn't very popular back then. It wasn't rigid, and it was based on her following her cues, and then I just gradually, started to put her down more awake, and I hadn't figured out the shuffle yet. But I experimented, and we thrived, and I felt like I was on to something, but I didn't tell anyone because I felt like at the time it was very unpopular to have a schedule, and, it was very confusing, the whole demand feeding, like it just meant like every time they peeped, you put them to your breast, right?
Right.
And there was not a lot of guidance, with that. And so, so things went well. And then I started to help a couple of my friends who were starting to have children, not that I, was any expert by any means. And then I had my second daughter. Now I'd helped quite a few friends, and I had my second daughter. And before that, Denise kept saying, Kim, why don't you, do this as part of your practice? Because I don't know if I mentioned this, Denise, but I am a clinical social worker for 21 years, and I had a practice at the time, and I just kept saying, well, I don't know, maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I was just lucky. And I had a nurse who I worked with who said, Kim, it's not luck. But I didn't really believe her. And so I waited until I had another daughter, and she had really bad silent reflux. Which, of course, because it was silent, took longer to diagnose. Finally, we figured it out, and then once I got that under control, then I got her sleep under control. And it was at that point where I started to think, you know what, I think I'm onto something. I think I might have a knack for this and a gift for sort of problem solving. You know how it always is easier to see more clearly the forest through the trees when it's not your forest.
Exactly,
but
yes.
somebody, yeah. And so I still, was still working my other job and my practice, and then I started to just see friends of friends of friends of friends. I no longer knew the point of contact or connection to me. And so that's when, again, Denise is like, Kim, you really need to use this gift that you've been given, and that's what I did. And I started with charging in my practice, and I did a speaking engagement, and a reporter came to the speaking engagement, and it just has unraveled since then, because you help somebody and you transform their lives, and it really is transformational. I'm not saying that to be overly dramatic. Those are words they share with me, and they tell everybody. And so that's how I end up on Dr. Phil and Good Morning America and Wall Street Journal and everything else. Yeah.
Right. That's an amazing story, and it's so true, because it was transformational for us. And, you really hit on something, Kim, that I feel like a lot of families, like sleeping is a very vulnerable issue. And, what happens in your house, and if you don't have it down as a mother, you kind of worry about being judged, and you're just kind of at a loss. And it can be very frustrating because being a parent involves so much of your energy, and that's what you want to do. You want to sleep, and then you also want your children to get their needed rest. So I just love how your method it's not the crying it out. Because I have to admit, I'm not one of those moms, and I'm not judging mothers, but I just could not let my daughters cry it out, and I felt like there has to be another way to get them at a peaceful night's rest.
Mhm. Yes. Well, I agree. I mean, I kind of I developed the more gradual, gentle method than Cry It Out because so many parents weren't able to follow through with it consistently because it just makes you feel bad. And it's very hard to follow through with something that pulls at, your heartstrings. And Denise, also it's important, I think this is an important little nugget to share, is that research does show that that the most successful sleep training method is extinction, i.e. full-blown cry it out. And the reason why it's the most successful is because we as the parent can't mess it up by going in and responding inconsistently. And so if we know that which then therefore supports that consistency is really the key to success in sleep coaching. And we also know that we just don't have it in us to do Cry It Out. And by the way, Cry It Out just does not work for every child. And if you know those two things, then I think that what our job or my job is to help you find the method you can follow through with consistently, and then be able to support you through the process. And so if you start out gently because you feel like it's the best match for your child and for you, and then in that process in the first, let's say, week or 5 days, you say, you know what, I think it would be better if I left the room and just checked on my child. Then I find that parents are more likely to follow through because they already started with a gentler method and they stayed with their child. And they came to that realization, and so they're more likely to follow through.
That's amazing, and it's so true. And another avenue that you take with your method is that it's differentiated, as I'd like to use the teacher term because I'm a former teacher. And, it's just the approach is brilliant because at each developmental stage, there's different needs, and they're experiencing life in a different way. And so naturally, the sleep method would need to also be differentiated. So just do you mind sharing with us your thought process and how you came up with each method, to really complement where children are at that particular stage?
I think it all unfolded. I have worked with, I stopped counting a few years ago, tens of thousands, multiple tens of thousands of families. And with each family I learned. And I grew, and I got wiser, and I had more experience and data to pull from to figure out what I find works for what kind of temperament child and what kind of family and what doesn't. And so I don't think that there's sort of set formulas, even though I know we as parents often want that. We want a formula with a magic wand or pill also. Or the guarantee would be also nice on top of all of those things. But I guess I base it on the child development. What is a child capable of at what age, and therefore customizing the plan based on that. So, for instance, and I'm also very evidence-based. So, for instance, there is not research that supports sleep training babies under 4 months, and that any, quote, bad sleep habits you do, even though I hate using that word, before then can all be undone. frequently you'll hear about parents who will sleep train their babies early on and then have to redo it. And part of that has to do with child development and the ability or lack thereof of self-regulating. So that's sort of one thing. Now, does that mean that you can't do some, gentle guidance early on to help set you up for sleep success later? Yes, but it's very different than active sleep training. And then after that, 4 to 6 months, you really have to assess a child. There's such a huge variability in that age range. And then pretty much after 6 months to 6 years, I go by what is going on sleep development-wise and physical, emotional, and social development-wise. And that's sort of how I've tweaked it, even though much of the framework of the method is the same. It's tweaked by the child's development and age.
Yes. And, I love how that also leads me to the conclusion of, some parents feel like their child is just not a sleeper. They get to this point of frustration and they just come to that conclusion. But after following your method, Kim, I tend to disagree. So what would you say to a parent who is at that place?
Yeah, I've certainly heard that a lot over the years. One of my favorite lines was a couple said, Kim, we're going to be the couple that breaks your success record. And I said to them, well, geez, I hope not. Not just for me, but mostly for you and for your child. And so I know it's easier for me to be confident because I've been doing this for so many years, but I really do feel confident that almost every sleep problem can be resolved and improved. And you might say, well, how come you said almost, Kim? And so the reason why I said almost is that there are usually factors that lead to lack of success in sleep coaching. So if a family were to say that to me, I would say, to me, in my head, I'm thinking, well, I just need to ask them more questions to strategize about what needs to change or why are they stuck, and some of the common sort of causes, if you will, for lack of success would be these. One is underlying medical conditions. If you treat a problem that's both behavioral and medical and you treat it only behaviorally, you'll get improvement, but you won't get the whole thing, right? Because you're missing the other half of the picture. So that's very common. For instance, sleep apnea in children is hugely underdiagnosed and much more common than we think as parents. Reflux is a big sleep wrecker, asthma, allergies, all of those things. Not that I am diagnosing those, but I know enough about the signs and I refer them back to their doctor. Or in some cases I refer them to an ENT to go get things ruled out, and sometimes a child even needs a sleep study. So that's a huge one. The other one is if I have a mom who has postpartum depression and is not being treated. And that can really interfere with the ability to read a child's cues, respond appropriately, and just to be able to function fully as a mom and as a parent. And then we put mom as priority, and when she's doing better, then we can focus on the child's sleep. And so it's a little bit more about family help, right, a wholeness approach. And then some other factors that can affect the success of sleep training, of course, is if the family has very few supports, or there might even be a partner sabotaging the other partner's efforts. So if there's significant marital discord. Now, I realize that almost all the parents who come to me are on edge because they are so sleep deprived. So that's why I underline the word significant. I'm not talking about you're bickering, you're feeling irritable and exhausted, and, that I think is really normal for my clients.
Absolutely.
So I think significant marital discord, and also sometimes when we as a parent have, again, the word significant unresolved emotional issues from our own childhood. That, if we're not aware of, definitely interferes or we project onto our children. So again, I underline significant because, after all, we all have issues. No one came from a perfect, quote, normal family. The difference is it interfering with our ability to be in the moment and to parent and function on a daily level.
Wow, and that's something that is just so profound to me that, and it just reinforces the family unit, how what is happening to one can have a profound effect on another family member, and especially mothers.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's,
to me, it's
incredible.
about family well-being. It cannot just be, is the baby doing well? It has to be, is our mom and dad and baby doing well? Or whoever are the primary caretakers of baby. It really is a family approach. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's essential.
Yes. Wow, absolutely. So there were two, if I had to narrow down for my listeners, two of the most popular questions that my followers had, it would be these two. Napping is an issue. So what if your child doesn't nap, or any issues surrounding that, and then the toddler bed. So what are your things that you would like to share about that?
So napping. Napping is a huge topic, and it was the most difficult part of my book for me to write, because there's so many moments where I wanted to say, well, it depends, right? So how you approach this nap has to do with what happened to the nap before and the naps yesterday and, and the age of the child. So I'll try to do my best to give useful tips here on such a huge topic. I do have, of course, as you know, nap coaching outlined in each age chapter of my book. I also have lots of blog articles on naps on my website that your listeners can read. And one of the most popular group of articles on my blog are the typical sleep averages and schedules. And again, not rigid schedules, but we as parents we like a little bit of framework, I noticed, in our day. And so if we understand that, first of all, naps, day sleep is not developed until around, and it really is that vague, around 4 months of age, and that's because the circadian rhythm, our internal clock, is only starting to be developed then. So that's why you see day-night confusion in smaller babies, and then it starts to kind of unravel and form as they get older. And the first comes the night sleep development, then morning nap, and then the stubborn afternoon nap. So that's important to know right off the bat. I think that gives parents like a lot of relief. I hear them sort of sighing or nodding their head like, oh, that's why the morning nap is easier and we just struggle with the afternoon nap, as an example. So then, 6 to 8 months, we have about 3 naps. I like to call it 2 bigger naps and a third bonus nap. That bonus nap is what helps them get it to bedtime. And then 9 months to about 15 months, they have 2 naps. And then we go from 2 naps to 1 nap, somewhere between 15 and 18 months. And then we stay with 1 nap for about, well, they say the average is 4 years of age that a 4-year-old stops napping. I've seen a good number of 3.5-year-olds. I also hear from a lot of parents who say, my 2-year-old stopped napping. And I always say, you know what, 2-year-olds think they're ready to give up their naps, but we as the parents know better than that.
Right.
And they really do need that. And then even after our children give up naps, I'm a big proponent of quiet time. So that's a really helpful thing about naps, just having like an expectation, a realistic expectation. The other thing with naps is that we really have to nap around the same time. Now, does that mean that all children must nap at 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.? No. But you have to find where your rhythm is with your child. And by the way, I'm not talking again about newborns, right? Because remember, that clock is not developed yet for them. So we do want to work in sync with our circadian rhythm, our internal clock that tells us when to go to sleep and when to be awake. And when we miss those opportunities for the ease of going to sleep and staying asleep, then we get that infamous second wind, and that happens to our children, and the body secretes, instead of melatonin, the drowsy-making hormone, it creates stimulating hormones, which it makes it harder for them to go to sleep, and then they tend to sleep a shorter amount of time. So a lot of times I'm working with families to help them figure out the wakeful window of their child so that we can avoid the overtired state and the wiring phase, and be in sort of like ride the wave, as Dr. Weisbluth says. It's kind of like surfing. You got to catch the wave at the right time, so they're likely to kind of go in and land on the beach as opposed to the wave crashing on top. So wakeful windows, i.e. the time. We've all seen our children in those stages, myself included.
Yes.
So it's not overtired, and we get their window right. And usually you'll find that it tends to be around the same time of day. Very common.
Yeah.
So those are some tidbits about naps, although I know there's probably a much bigger, lots more questions.
Right. Well, you go in so much detail in your book and the resources you provide, and towards the end, we'll definitely let our listeners know how they can access those things. And I'm in this phase with the toddler bed, and you said some very interesting things in your book about the toddler bed. I think we, as parents, feel like we have to reach certain milestones at a certain time. So please share with us your take on the toddler bed and how that affects sleep.
Well, and this is another one of these big topics. The average age to understand cognitively and also to have enough impulse control to understand and act on stay in your bed all night long isn't developed until, and again, it's just an average, 2.5 years of age. I really happen to think that one of the best times to transition to a toddler bed is 3 years old. A lot happens between 2.5 and 3, and especially in terms of language development, which really, really helps. The hardest cases, I would say, not impossible, but just the hardest and take the longest, which is always challenging, because if we're tired and we have to be consistent over weeks, we'll tend to waffle at some point, right? So the hardest are the parents who come to me and they have, for instance, a 20-month-old in a bed. And those are challenging. Those are challenging cases because oftentimes the child does not understand what you're asking them to do. And so it can take several weeks. And it can sometimes involve gating the door and, constant, returning to the bed. Very, very challenging. But again, not impossible, but challenging.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more because I'm in the thick of that actually right now. So I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. And so I will close with two things. Before I ask you to share how families can access your resources, what would be one piece of advice that you would give parents in regard to their child's sleep routine and pattern? This is more of kind of like, from one mom to another, what piece of advice would you give?
I know. That's a common question. It's so difficult to answer because I have to pick only one.
I know, because it's a complicated issue.
I guess I'm going to cheat and not pick one because you'll see my answers sort of combine several things. And that is to not feel pressured to sleep train your newborn before 4 months. And then after that, go with your gut. Go with your intuition and spend more time reading your baby's cues than feeling like you have to follow a rigid formula. And if you do need to end up, because not everyone has to sleep coach their child, then, go out, do some research. There's really only about 3 ways to change behavior, and figure out which one you think is the best match for your child and for yourself that you can follow through with consistently. And know that anything is fixable. Anything. Yeah, in regards to sleep. Like I always tell parents, I will hold the light at the end of the tunnel until you can, I can pass the light on to you. Because so many times we as parents feel hopeless, like it will never get better. And it really can.
That's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And something that is so reassuring for so many parents. And boy, do we need that. So that's just great. So how can parents access your resources? And you also have certified sleep coaches out there. How can we tap into that?
Everything is available through my website, sleeplady.com. And you can also from there purchase any of my books. You can also go to Amazon and purchase my books, or Barnes & Noble. And my list of coaches are also on my website under coaching. And you can find a coach anywhere near you, all over the world. You also don't have to pick someone near you if you're in a place that there isn't one, because all of my coaches can work with you via Skype or phone. And I also have an online program, too, if you wanted to have a little bit more do-it-yourself approach. So all of those resources are available on my website.
That's great. Oh, my goodness. Kim, I can't thank you enough. I mean, you, even my little one knows the sleep lady. It's like the sleep lady says. So you have
That's right. I tell everybody, blame it on me.
Yes.
It works perfectly.
Well, she loves you. Yeah, she loves you. And bedtime, I don't want to get teary-eyed, but you have taken what was like nightmarish and turned it into one of our favorite, if not our favorite time of the day. She even talks to people about her bedtime and how exciting it is and how it makes her so happy. And I just personally cannot thank you enough for that. And, it's just something that we were really having issues with, and so many families do, and you are just incredible with the sleep method that you have out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that warms my heart to hear that, because I really think that bedtime really can be the most special time in your day. I know my daughters still have fond memories of, the picture books we would look at and read together before bedtime and their snuggly bed and things in it. So I really wish that for all parents and their children.
Thank you. Well, hey, if they get your resources and get the book, they will definitely be able to achieve it.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to stay in touch with me by visiting www.deniseandlarosa.com. Follow me on Twitter @DeniseandLaRosa, on Facebook, Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa, or email me at denise@deniseandlarosa.com. You can also sign up for my newsletter by emailing newsletter@deniseandlarosa.com. You have been listening to Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa. I will leave you with this quote by Meryl Streep. Motherhood has a very humanizing effect. Everything gets reduced to essentials. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more, please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel or check out some more videos.